My husband wanted me to leave first, so he started ignoring me, spending nights away, and acting like I didn't exist. One night, I found his suitcase half-packed. A note on top read, "Just a few more weeks." Smirking, I packed it for him, added a plane ticket, one way, and left a note that said, "Why wait?" When he came home, he found the locks changed. And his mistress waiting outside. I, 42 female, have been with my husband, Mark, 44 male, for 17 years. Married for 15. We lived just outside Chicago, in Oak Park. Nice little neighborhood, decent schools, a quiet street. To most people, we looked like a stable, content couple. And for a long time I thought we were. Mark works in consulting. He's always had a job that involves some travel, nothing too crazy, maybe a few trips every quarter. I work as a dental hygienist at a private practice nearby. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and I enjoy what I do. The shift started about a year ago. It wasn't some big explosion. It was slow, like erosion. Subtle at first. Mark got quieter. Short answers. A lot of "I'm tired" and "it's just work stress." Less eye contact. More time on his phone. He stopped asking about my day. Stopped touching me. And eventually, it felt like I was living with a roommate I barely knew. I tried talking to him. Many times. Calmly at first, then frustrated. Then I just stopped trying. Because every time I brought it up, it was the same thing, "It's work. I'm just tired. It's nothing." But it was something. He started staying out later. Then came the overnights. First it was client dinners ran late. Then it turned into "I have an early morning meeting, might as well stay downtown." Once or twice became once a week, then sometimes 2 or 3 nights. I asked questions. I didn't accuse. I just asked. "Where are you staying? Can I call you later? Want to do dinner this weekend?" He always had answers. Not great ones. But just enough to keep me unsure. I tried to talk to friends about it. Some said maybe it was a phase. Others gave me that look, the one where they're thinking something worse but don't want to say it. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't want to believe it yet. One night, he came home after being gone 2 nights in a row. No explanation. No apology. Just walked in, mumbled a "hey," and headed to the guest room, something he started doing a few months ago. Said he snored too much and didn't want to bother me. Never mind that we shared a bed for over a decade without issue. I sat there on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen, and something inside me just snapped. I was done waiting for him to admit it. Done trying to guess. I needed to know. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked the guest room when he left the next morning. There it was. A suitcase. Half-packed. Neatly folded shirts, socks, jeans, a toiletry bag already zipped and ready. And right on top? A piece of paper. Not even hidden. In his handwriting, "Just a few more weeks." That's all it said. I read it maybe 10 times. My hands were shaking. My ears felt hot. My chest was pounding. Just a few more weeks? For what? Was he planning to leave? Waiting for me to make the first move so he didn't have to look like the bad guy? Was he trying to push me into ending it so he could play victim? I stood there for a long time, just staring at that suitcase. Then I sat down and cried. I cried until I was numb. Then something changed. I stopped crying. I stopped shaking. I felt clear. "You want to leave, Mark? Okay. I'll help you." I spent the rest of that afternoon off from work doing what needed to be done. He still had a key. But not for long. Now, here's where things got a little wild. That evening, around 7:30 p.m., I heard a car pull into the driveway. I didn't recognize it. I turned off the lights and peeked out the front window. Mark was getting out of the passenger side of a black SUV. And driving? A woman. I froze. I knew her face. Her name is Rachel. She works at his firm. I'd met her once at a holiday party. Pretty. Blonde. Smiley. Friendly. Too friendly. I remember thinking at the time how she laughed a little too hard at Mark's jokes. How she touched his arm when she said goodbye. But I brushed it off. Told myself not to be that kind of wife. Well, guess I should have trusted my gut. They walked up the path together. Laughing. Like they'd just been out on a date. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his key, and stopped. Did it again? I waited behind the door. Silent. Then I heard him try the knob. It didn't budge. I opened the door just enough for them to see me, suitcase in hand, sitting right on the porch. Mark's face went pale. Rachel's smile dropped. He said my name. Like a question. Like he couldn't believe I was real. Your key won't work anymore, I said calmly. I nodded at the suitcase. That's yours. I packed it. Your plane leaves tomorrow. One way. Hope LA treats you better than I did. Neither of them spoke. Rachel looked like she wanted to vanish. I turned, walked inside, and shut the door behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't cry. I locked it with a new deadbolt and sat down on the couch. It's been a few hours since then. He's tried calling. I'm not answering. No texts. No apologies. Just missed calls. And I'm here, typing this, still in disbelief. This isn't the end of the story yet. Not by a long shot. But it's the start of me taking my life back. He wanted to leave quietly. So I gave him an exit. Now we'll see what happens next. It had been 3 days since I locked him out. 3 long, strange days. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. No calls after midnight, no banging on the door, no yelling. Just silence. I thought maybe he was gone for good. Maybe he left with her, tail between his legs. But then on the second day, I came home from work and found something weird. A note taped to my front door. It wasn't handwritten. It was printed. Plain white paper. Big bold letters. This isn't over. No name. No explanation. No context. I stood there with my groceries in hand, just staring at it. Was it from him? Her? Some twisted joke? I tore it down and went inside, locking every single lock behind me. My hands were shaking again. I didn't sleep that night. On the third day, I saw Rachel. Not on purpose. I was pulling into the Walgreens parking lot when I noticed her car already parked. That black SUV. I recognized the plates. And there she was, sitting inside, staring straight ahead like she was waiting for someone. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and didn't care. But something about her expression, it wasn't smug. It wasn't the face of someone who just won a man. She looked pissed. I parked far away and waited until she went inside before going in. I didn't say anything. I just watched her from the other aisle. She didn't look like someone in love. She looked stressed. Anxious. Kept checking her phone like she was expecting bad news. That made me pause. Why was she like that? Later that evening, I got a call. This time I answered, because it was from an unknown number and I was half afraid something had happened. It was Mark. You need to stop, he said, no greeting, no apology. You had your little moment. Now unlock the door. I stayed silent. He went on. You're acting crazy. Putting my stuff on the porch like that? Changing the locks? That's illegal, Sarah. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Illegal? You want to talk about what's illegal, or just what's pathetic? He cursed under his breath. You don't know what you're doing. You don't understand the position I'm in. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. I read your little note. Just a few more weeks. Planning your exit? Waiting for the right moment to disappear? Or were you just hoping I'd break down first and make it easier for you? There was silence on the other end. Then he said, it wasn't just about us. That's when I got suspicious. What does that mean? I can't say over the phone. Just, please. Can we meet? That made me pause. Why was he being vague now? Why not just yell and deny like he usually did? No, I said firmly. You want to talk? Send a lawyer. I hung up. But now I couldn't stop thinking about it. It wasn't just about us. What the hell did that mean? That night, I checked his suitcase again. Just out of curiosity. I had brought it inside after 2 days because it was raining and I didn't want the neighbors gossiping. I opened the front pocket. And I found something I missed. A USB drive. Just a plain silver thumb drive, no label. I plugged it into my old laptop, mostly out of spite. What I saw didn't make any sense. There were folders. Labeled things like Q4 briefing, client names, overhead estimates. Some were password protected. Some weren't. The ones I could open? Full of spreadsheets. Names. flights, money transfers, and a few documents with Rachel's name on them. Now it was more than cheating. Way more. Was this work stuff? Something illegal? Money laundering? Fraud? Something told me Rachel wasn't just the other woman. Maybe she was involved in something deeper with him. Or maybe she thought she was, and now it was backfiring. I started printing. Saving everything. I didn't know what I was looking at exactly, but I knew it mattered. I had a folder full of printed documents and screenshots before midnight. The next morning, I got a message. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I need to talk. Please. It's not what you think. Our Rachel. Why was she reaching out now? Why was she being careful? And most importantly, what the hell were they involved in? This wasn't just a cheating story anymore. Something darker was under the surface. And I was right in the middle of it. I didn't reply to Rachel's message right away. I stared at it for a long time. She could be trying to mess with me. Or maybe she was scared. Either way, I wasn't going to meet her in person. Not yet. Not until I had some control. So I replied with one sentence, talk here. She took almost 20 minutes to answer. You found the USB, didn't you? I felt sick reading that. She knew I found it. I hadn't told Mark. Hadn't mentioned it to anyone. The only way she could know was if she and Mark were monitoring each other. Or working together. Or maybe not. I didn't answer her right away. My phone buzzed again. They'll come for it. Don't keep it in your house. What? Who? What was she talking about? I asked her directly, who's they? She didn't reply. I waited for hours. Nothing. The next day at work, I was on edge. Jumping at every sound. Checking the front window at every car that pulled into the lot. When I got home, I checked the house. No signs of a break-in, but I could tell something was off. Like someone had been in the guest room. The curtain was crooked. The closet door was open just a bit, too exact to be random. But nothing was missing. Except the USB drive. Gone. I checked everywhere I had stashed it. I even checked the printer tray where I left the last printout. That was gone too. Now I was scared. Really scared. I called my best friend, Nadia. She's a nurse at a local clinic, no nonsense, sharp as hell. She came over in 20 minutes with a bottle of wine and her what the hell happened face. I told her everything. The suitcase. The note. Rachel. The drive. The message. The missing documents. She listened, quiet, until I was done. Then she said one thing that changed everything. Sarah, you realize you just walked into a white-collar crime situation, right? I felt the color drain from my face. She was right. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't just an affair. Mark and Rachel were into something serious. Corporate-level serious. Maybe embezzlement. Maybe fraud. And now, because I packed his bag and changed the locks, I had somehow ended up right in the middle of it. Nadia told me to call a lawyer. She even gave me a name of one her brother had used in a divorce. I agreed. But before I could make that call, I got another text. This time from Mark. You're in danger. I'm not playing. Don't go to the police yet. I'll explain. Please. I blocked the number. I wasn't playing either. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the hallway light on. I wedged a chair under the doorknob even though I knew it was stupid. In the morning, there was another note at my door. This one was handwritten. Sloppy. Fast. Like it was written in a rush. I never meant to pull you into this. But now that you've seen the files, they won't stop. No name. No signature. Just fear. I packed a small bag and left. Went to stay at Nadia's for the weekend. And here's where it gets worse. She lives in an apartment downtown. Big building. Keycard access. Safe. But 2 days in, I got a knock on her door. A delivery. My name on the package. No return address. Inside? A copy of my wedding photo. Torn in half. And underneath it? A sticky note that said, "Don't be brave." I felt like I was going to throw up. Someone was watching me. They knew I wasn't home. They knew where I went. Nadia took the box straight to her cousin, who works as a paralegal. He looked at everything and told us to get a lawyer now. The lawyer met with me that Monday. His face went pale when I explained everything and showed the messages, the notes, the missing drive, and the photos I'd printed. He said something I didn't expect: "You need protection. You're not a target, you're a witness." Turns out, this wasn't just about Mark cheating or Rachel being messy. It was something much bigger. Apparently, the firm Mark worked for? It had already been under quiet federal investigation for shady overseas transfers. Nothing made public yet. But Rachel's name was already flagged. And now I had touched a file that connected to all of it. I was advised not to speak to Mark or Rachel again. If they contacted me, I had to save it and forward it directly to the lawyer. I didn't know what scared me more, that my husband betrayed me, or that now I was part of something criminal and dangerous that could blow up any second. My life had gone from quiet dinners and Netflix to watching my back, sleeping with a bat next to my bed, and being told I might need witness protection if things go south. I still haven't told my family. I don't know how to explain this without sounding like a lunatic. And I don't know who's really protecting who anymore. Mark said I didn't understand the position he was in. Now I think I do. And I think someone's going to get burned. But it's not going to be me. It happened in the most public, awful way possible. A federal subpoena hit Mark's firm. It made the local news first, then picked up by a national outlet. Rachel's name was one of the first released. Right there on the ticker during the morning news, 2 executives named in Chicago consulting firm fraud probe. I was sipping coffee at Nadia's kitchen table when I saw it. My hand froze midair. My stomach dropped. Mark's name wasn't there, yet. But I knew. And so did he. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I was about to ignore it, but something told me to answer. "Sarah, please. You have to meet me," Mark's voice, desperate, strained. "One time. Please." "No," I said, ready to hang up. "There's more. Things I can't say over the phone. It's not just about the money. Or Rachel." I stayed silent. He continued, "I never wanted to drag you into this. You were supposed to be out of it by now." I was planning to disappear. There it was. Confirmation. That just a few more weeks was an exit plan. Not just from me, but from everything. I agreed to meet, but on my terms. In public. Bright daylight. No funny business. So we met at the Lincoln Park Conservatory. It was crowded. People around. Safe. When he saw me, he looked different. Pale. Worn out. His hair was messy. His shirt wrinkled. The Mark I knew, well-dressed, confident, always put together, was gone. "Thank you," he said quietly, sitting across from me on a bench near the ferns. "Talk," I said. He exhaled. "Rachel pulled me in 2 years ago. I didn't know at first. She made it seem like harmless tax moves, minor accounting tricks. Then the money started moving offshore. I tried to back out. She threatened to expose everything, including us. Including the affair." I stared at him. "So you stayed, to protect yourself?" He didn't answer that. "I was going to leave, Sarah. For real. I was getting a new identity. I thought if I made it messy with you, if I ignored you enough, you'd get fed up. File for divorce. I'd slip away. Clean." My voice was cold. "And the note? Just a few more weeks? That was your countdown to vanish?" He nodded. "But you found the drive. That changed everything." Then I saw her. Rachel. She was approaching. Fast. Red in the face, hair wild, wearing dark glasses. "I told you not to contact her," she snapped, looking at Mark. Then she turned to me. "You have no idea what you've done." People were starting to look. "Oh, I think I have a pretty damn good idea," I said, standing up. She hissed at Mark, "You promised. You said you were cutting ties." "She's my wife," he shouted, louder than he intended. A kid nearby looked up. Someone gasped. "Was," I said. "You mean was your wife? Because this? This right here? This is over." Rachel stepped closer, but Mark held up his hand. "Don't." Too late. Security began to move toward us. A park officer gently asked if everything was all right. I smiled politely. "It is now." Rachel stormed off. Mark stood there, staring at me like he'd just realized something was gone for good. I didn't stay. I walked away. I walked until my legs hurt. I cried, but not for him. For myself. For everything I put up with. For how blind I had been. That night, the FBI showed up at Nadia's place. I was ready. My lawyer had already handed over the screenshots, the printed files, and every text and email I had. They said I did the right thing. Mark was named as a cooperating witness. He flipped on Rachel. Turns out, she was the head of the entire scheme. She used him. Manipulated him. He was her cleanup man, the fixer, the quiet numbers guy who helped smooth things over. But he still lied to me. Cheated. Tried to disappear and let me carry the shame and fallout. That part? That wasn't forgivable. A few days later, he sent me one last message: I never deserved you. I'm sorry. No, please forgive me. No begging. Just that. I didn't answer. Nadia stayed by my side through it all. My sister flew in from Denver when she heard. Even my neighbor, old Mrs. Harrington, brought over cookies and said, "You always seem too good for him, dear." The divorce was finalized quietly 2 months later. I kept the house. He took his share and disappeared. Rumor is, he's out west. Somewhere dry. Somewhere quiet. No idea where Rachel ended up. Probably somewhere colder, like a cell. Life's been quiet since. Not peaceful, but quiet. I went back to work. Switched to part-time for a while. Started therapy. Cut my hair. Painted the walls of the guest room. Burned the sheets. There are still days where I wonder how it all happened. How I didn't see it coming. How the man I built a life with became a stranger. A criminal. A liar. But there are other days, better days, where I feel strong. Clear. Whole. I'm not the same woman who stared at that half-packed suitcase. I'm not the woman who begged for answers. I'm the woman who packed it for him. Who said, "Why wait?" And I mean that now in every way. Why wait to take back your life? Why wait to start again? I'm still healing. Still angry sometimes. But I'm also free. That's something no one can take from me again. Not even him.